When my daughter's Roblox match turned into a school meeting, I never thought my 10-year-old daughter, Liana, would turn a simple Roblox friendship into a full school crisis. But that is exactly where my life had landed. It started with her intense attachment to an online player called Prince Zane99, a name that should have been my first warning sign. After an emotional breakup ceremony at school, I got dragged into meetings with teachers, another parent, and even the school IT coordinator, all treating it like some kind of digital emergency. By the end of it, Liana was treating Roblox like a courtroom for feelings, complete with evidence, speeches, and dramatic declarations of closure. I was exhausted, confused, and mostly surviving on cold coffee and confusion. The last moment I remembered clearly was her whispering that Prince Zane99 was back online with an apology arc, followed by the school announcing a follow-up emotional regulation workshop. I thought the chaos was peaking there, but I was wrong. As I stood outside the school that afternoon, watching other parents argue in a group chat about Wi-Fi bans and therapy sessions, I realized something important. This was no longer just a kids being kids situation. It was turning into something bigger, something I did not fully understand, but was somehow responsible for managing. And then Liana said the words that stuck in my head. "Dad, this is just season 2. I should have known she meant it. Because when I got home that night, the notifications had already started again, and this time, they were different. I unlocked the front door slowly, like I was entering a crime scene I had already failed to secure. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that means a child is either asleep or plotting emotional warfare on a digital platform. Liana was sitting cross-legged on the sofa, tablet glowing in her hands, face completely serious. "Dad," she said without looking up, "we need to talk about server diplomacy." I closed my eyes for a second. This was going to be a long season. She finally looked up from the screen like she was addressing a press conference. "Dad, Prince Zane99 started a new server," she said. I asked her if that was a problem. She nodded like I had just failed a major exam. My phone buzzed again, this time from the school principal, followed by an email titled, "Urgent, Digital Interaction Continuation Risk." I rubbed my forehead and wondered when parenting turned into IT management. Somewhere in the kitchen, the fridge hummed like it was judging me. Liana added very calmly that negotiations would begin at 8 p.m. sharp, and I was expected to attend as legal guardian and emotional support staff. I just nodded, realizing I had no idea what I was agreeing to anymore tonight in silence now. That night arrived faster than I expected, mostly because I spent the entire day pretending I understood what server diplomacy meant while quietly Googling it in bathroom breaks. Liana had turned our living room into what she called a neutral negotiation zone, which basically meant she pushed the coffee table aside and placed her tablet in the center like it was some sacred artifact. I sat on the couch, already tired, while she wore a headset twice her size and spoke with the seriousness of a UN ambassador. "Dad," she said, "you are representing our household interests." I asked her what those were. She replied, "Emotional stability and respectful loot sharing." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Then the call began. On her screen was Prince Zane99, except now his avatar looked different, less royal, more like a confused raccoon wearing sunglasses. There were also 2 other kids in the call, plus what looked suspiciously like an adult voice trying not to sound like an adult. The conversation escalated immediately. Liana opened with a formal apology request. I had no idea she had scripts for this. She read from a notebook titled Peace Treaty Draft 3. I leaned back and whispered to myself that I was failing as a father in ways no parenting book had ever prepared me for. Halfway through, my phone rang. It was my ex-wife, Samira. We had been separated for 3 years, mostly peacefully until now. "I heard there's a Roblox United Nations happening at your place," she said. I closed my eyes. "It's not a UN," I said. "It's a negotiation about digital heartbreak." She paused. "That sounds worse." She said she was coming over. Of course she was. By the time she arrived, Liana had already escalated the situation to what she called Clause 7 Emotional Accountability. Samira stood in the doorway, took one look at the setup, and immediately said, "Why is there a child in diplomatic crisis mode?" Liana proudly raised her tablet. "Mom, I'm resolving global friendship instability." Samira looked at me like I was responsible for the invention of chaos. "I didn't teach her this," I said quickly. "No," she replied, "but she definitely learned it in your house." That stung more than it should have. The negotiation continued for another hour, with terms, counteroffers, and something called respect cooldown periods. At one point, Liana demanded a 5-minute silence agreement to process emotional patch notes. I stared at the ceiling, wondering how I ended up here, mediating Roblox treaties with my ex-wife judging me silently from the corner. Then everything changed. Prince Zane99's voice came through again, but this time it cracked mid-sentence. The adult-sounding participant finally spoke clearly and said, "Okay, I need to stop this. I'm not a kid." The room went silent. Liana froze. And for the first time, I saw her expression shift from dramatic confidence to something softer, uncertain, almost embarrassed. The negotiation wasn't just ending. It was collapsing in real time completely now there. The moment the voice admitted he wasn't a kid, everything in the room shifted like someone had unplugged the emotional electricity. Liana didn't speak. She just stared at the screen, her fingers still hovering like she expected the game to correct itself. I saw her confidence drain in real time, replaced by something I rarely see in her, confusion without drama. Samira was the first to break the silence. "So, who exactly has she been talking to?" The voice hesitated. Then came the explanation. He wasn't an adult predator or anything dramatic like that. He was a 15-year-old boy from another school who had been role-playing a royal breakup arc for fun. He didn't expect it to escalate into what he called international emotional legislation. I almost laughed. Almost. But Liana didn't. She slowly lowered her tablet. So, it was fake? Her voice was smaller now. No courtroom tone, no crown energy, just a kid. I sat forward slightly. Not fake, just not what you thought. Samira looked at me, then at Liana, and softened. Hey, she said gently, walking closer. People online don't always know what their actions feel like on the other side. Liana blinked fast. I could tell she was trying not to cry, which in her world usually meant a dramatic explosion was coming. But it didn't. Instead, she whispered, I made a whole treaty. That broke something in me. Not in a bad way. In a parenting way you don't expect to feel at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. I reached over and sat beside her. You cared. That's not bad, she sniffed. I thought it was real friendship. Samira pulled a chair closer, suddenly less ex-wife and more co-parent again. It was real to you. That matters. The school email buzzed again on my phone, but for once I didn't open it immediately. I already knew it was going to be another follow-up concern. Instead, I looked at Liana. You want to tell them what happened? She frowned. They're going to ban me. Probably, I said honestly. That made Samira laugh softly. But then something unexpected happened. Liana straightened up again, not fully dramatic, but thoughtful. If I explain it, can I say I was trying to stop emotional scams? I blinked. That's actually not wrong. Samira nodded. Carefully phrased, but yes. So we agreed. We would go together to the school meeting, not as a crisis response, but as a clarification. And for the first time all week, the house felt quiet in a normal way. Not chaotic quiet, just tired quiet. The next morning felt like walking into a different version of my own life, one where schools had suddenly become tech support centers for emotional disasters. Samira picked me up early, which immediately made me feel like we were co-parents in a business partnership I never signed up for, but somehow agreed to. Neither of us spoke much in the car. That silence was different from yesterday. It was planning silence. When we arrived at the school, Mr. Halden was waiting with the same expression people wear when they've seen too much internet for one lifetime. The principal greeted us like we were arriving for a panel discussion rather than a parenting meeting. Liana sat between us in the small conference room, swinging her legs slightly, trying to look confident but clearly tired. For the first time, she didn't have her tablet. I reviewed the incident report, the principal began carefully, sliding a folder forward. And I must say, this is unprecedented. Samira nodded politely. I just sighed internally. Then came the school counselor, who immediately started using phrases like digital attachment escalation and boundary confusion in virtual environments. I lost track after the third phrase. Liana interrupted suddenly. So am I in trouble? The room paused. The counselor softened. No, but we need to understand your emotional process. Liana frowned. I was trying to fix a friendship. That's understandable, I added quickly. Mr. Halden leaned forward. But organizing courtroom-style roleplay in school systems is concerning, Samira muttered. She definitely got that from him, which I chose not to respond to. Then the IT coordinator joined in, holding a printed screenshot of something that looked like Roblox court transcripts. I felt my soul leave my body for a second. We've implemented new restrictions, he said. No external roleplay servers during school hours. Liana looked offended. That feels unfair. It's necessary, he replied. She leaned back dramatically. This is digital injustice. I rubbed my forehead. Please don't start another case. Samira actually laughed this time. The meeting went on for another hour, mostly policy explanations mixed with gentle parenting advice we both pretended to fully understand. At some point, the counselor suggested offline emotional grounding activities, which apparently meant less Roblox and more talking. Afterward, as we walked out, Liana stayed unusually quiet. Outside the building, she finally said, So I'm not allowed to fix things online anymore? I knelt slightly so I was at her level. You can fix things, just not like a lawyer in a video game courtroom. She considered that. So more like a normal kid? Samira smiled. Exactly that. Liana kicked a small stone on the ground. That sounds boring. I laughed. Welcome to parenting. But even as I said it, I knew something had shifted. Over the next few days, life tried to return to normal. But normal felt like a setting none of us knew how to activate anymore. Liana went back to school. But she moved differently. Quieter. Like she was testing whether her old confidence still worked in smaller doses. At home, she barely mentioned Roblox, which honestly worried me more than when she was treating it like international law. Samira started calling more often, not just about logistics, but about Liana's mood. It felt strange, like we were rebuilding a bridge neither of us had planned to reconstruct. One evening, she came over with groceries, completely unannounced, which is her way of saying she is concerned, but pretending it is casual. She's processing it, Samira said while putting things in the kitchen. Processing what exactly? I asked. Embarrassment, confusion, the realization that not everyone online is who they pretend to be. I nodded. That sounds healthy? Eventually, she replied. Liana was upstairs, unusually quiet again. I went to check on her and found her drawing something in a notebook. Not digital this time. Paper. That alone felt like progress. What's that? I asked. She hesitated before showing me. It was a sketch of her Roblox courtroom, but smaller, less dramatic. Next to it was a drawing of a simple chat box with two stick figures talking normally. I'm redesigning it, she said. Redesigning what? My way of fixing stuff. I sat beside her. That sounds like growth. She shrugged. It still feels unfair that people can just lie online. That hit harder than I expected. Later that night, Samira and I stood in the kitchen talking quietly. She takes after you, she said suddenly. I almost laughed. In what way? She doesn't let things go. She builds systems around problems. I leaned on the counter. That sounds like a compliment disguised as an insult. It is, she admitted. We both laughed, but it faded quickly into something more reflective. Then came the unexpected twist I didn't see coming. The school emailed again. This time it wasn't a warning or a meeting request. It was an invitation. They wanted Liana to join a digital responsibility pilot group, basically kids helping design rules for online behavior in school platforms. I stared at the email. They're recruiting her? Samira read it over my shoulder. They're turning her into policy feedback. I looked upstairs. Is that good or terrifying? Both, she said immediately. When we told Liana, she didn't smile right away. She just stared at the idea for a long moment. So I can help make rules? She asked. Yes, I said carefully. For everyone? For everyone, Samira confirmed. That's when she finally smiled again. Not dramatic, not courtroom energy, something quieter. Okay, she said, but I want a voice. And in that moment, I realized she hadn't stopped being intense. She had just found a different direction for it. And I knew parenting her would never be simple again after this moment now. The school pilot group started the following week, and I expected chaos. But what I got instead was something even stranger. Structure. Liana began attending after-school sessions with a small group of kids, all tasked with discussing online behavior like tiny policy experts in training. Samira and I would sit in the back sometimes, pretending not to hover, which we were very bad at. At home, Liana started talking differently about her Roblox experience. Not less emotionally intense, but more aware. She would pause before reacting, as if she had installed a delay button in her personality. One evening, she came home and said, "We talked about fake identities today." I asked, "And what did you learn?" "That people don't always lie to hurt you," she said. "Sometimes they just don't know who they are online either." That line stayed with me longer than I expected. Meanwhile, Samira and I were also adjusting. Not as a couple, not again, but as something more functional than we had been in years. We coordinated pickups, meetings, even emotional updates, like we were managing a shared project. Then came the final interaction with Prince Zane 99. Liana told us she wanted to send one last message, not a dramatic courtroom closure, just something simple. We sat with her while she typed it slowly. "Hey," she read out loud as she wrote, "I thought we were real friends, but I understand now we were just role-playing. I hope you're okay. I'm okay, too." She paused before sending it. "Is that it?" I asked. She nodded. "That's enough." She pressed send. No ceremony, no crown, no digital trial. Just a message. And for the first time, nothing escalated afterward. No apology arc, no dramatic reply, just silence. That silence didn't feel empty, it felt finished. Later that night, Samira and I stood outside on the porch while Liana slept. "She handled that better than I expected," Samira said. "She grew into it," I replied. "She also scared half the school administration," she added. I laughed. "That part is consistent." We both leaned against the railing, watching the quiet street. Then Samira said something I didn't expect. "You did okay, you know." I looked at her. "That sounds like faint praise." "It is," she admitted. "But it's still praise." I accepted that more than I should have. Inside, Liana's tablet buzzed once, then stopped. No more messages from Prince Zane 99, no more negotiations, no more digital courtrooms. Just silence. And I realized something I hadn't noticed before. The chaos hadn't disappeared. It had just changed shape into something she could understand. Before we went inside, I realized parenting her wasn't about stopping the chaos. It was about helping her learn what to do with it. Samira bumped my shoulder lightly and said we might actually survive this phase. I laughed because I wasn't sure survival was the right word. Upstairs, Liana slept peacefully for once, and I finally understood that growth doesn't look calm while it happens anyway now. That night should have felt like closure. But parenting never really gives you a clean ending. It just gives you quieter problems. The house was finally still, the kind of stillness that feels earned instead of suspicious. I sat in the living room long after Samira left, staring at the place where Liana once held her negotiation summit, remembering how absurd it all felt only days ago. Liana came downstairs later, rubbing her eyes. "Can't sleep?" I asked. She shook her head and sat beside me without her usual dramatic entrance. "Dad," she said quietly, "do you think I was stupid?" That question hit differently than all the chaos combined. I thought carefully before answering. "No, you were just trying to make sense of people in your own way." She nodded slowly. "I think I understand it better now," she said. "Not everything needs a courtroom." I smiled. "That's probably a good rule." She leaned her head on my arm, something she almost never did unless she was exhausted or emotionally defeated. "Are you mad at me?" she asked. That one hurt more. "No," I said immediately. "Never that." We sat in silence for a moment. Then she whispered, "I still want to help people online, though." "That part doesn't have to change," I said. "Just the way you do it." She looked up. "Like the pilot group?" "Exactly like that." For the first time in weeks, she smiled without intensity, just a small, real smile. "Okay," she said, "I think I can do that." I exhaled slowly, realizing something I hadn't been able to admit before. We didn't fix her. We just helped her grow around it. And that was enough. Outside, the night stayed quiet. No notifications, no digital emergencies. Just a kid learning where her emotions belonged, and a father learning he didn't have to control every storm to survive it. And for once, I believed we actually might.
So, you know what? At the end of the day, kids do not need perfect parents, they just need someone willing to listen and grow with them. And honestly, I am still learning every single day. Hope you enjoy this story. Please tell me your thoughts in comments.